Right, guys, I gotta call out another septic spot on the arse of humanity. He's trying to rewrite history relating to the past few years and the stuff they said during it. Here we have a clip from GB News where he now admits in a roundabout way that Sweden got it right, though still claims they're comparable to us, which given excess death rates now proves he's talking crap. Oh, and like I said, he's seriously trying to rewrite history, but this tosspot forgets people like me keep receipts for what these scumbags actually did.
You left a pandemic plan in place, which didn't involve a blanket lockdown. That wasn't what the plan was. Every other countries, Sweden had the same plan. They stuck to their plan. Why do you think the government abandoned the plan, the pandemic plan that you left behind? And you seem to also support the government in abandoning the plan that you left behind. So what was so wrong with your plan that it needed to be abandoned? It was, after all, your plan.
Well, I think we all have to be humble about the events of the pandemic, because I don't think we did as well as we could have done as a country.
Hold on a minute there. Did he just say we didn't do as well as we could have as a country? That there sounds like he's blaming the public and not politicians for what went on. Obviously, this is pure bollocks because the public got propagandized into irrational fear by politicians and the media puppets they paid to push it. What he really means is corrupt politicians loused up their plans and made it obvious they was talking shit pretty much from the start. Anyway, though, let's move on because he don't stop there.
Although, in other ways, our vaccine rollout, we were one of the very best in the world, so there's much to be proud of as well. But in terms of preparations, we did prepare exhaustively. Johns Hopkins University in the United States said we had the second best preparations of anywhere in the world. Looking back with the benefit of hindsight, and it is with the benefit of hindsight, I can see that we over-focused on preparing for pandemic flu and not for the type of virus that we actually ended up with, which was a coronavirus.
Which is a flu virus.
It's a different type of virus, but it spreads slightly more slowly. So you have the incubation period, a longer incubation period, which is why, looking back on it, the approach that I advocated when I was chair of the Health Select Committee was really to follow what they were doing in Korea and Taiwan, where they avoided national lockdowns by having a much more effective test and trace system.
Well, being proud of the jab rollout is not something universally agreed with, and especially not when you consider the coercion used to push it. But did you actually hear that word salad of horseshit there that he just puked out? Because I know I did, and have to question how dumb he actually thinks people are. I mean, he said that they threw out his pandemic plan because it focused on flu and not coronaviruses. This despite the basic fact they're both meant to be respiratory viruses spread using the same bloody methods. In fact, you might actually remember flu vanished like a fart in the wind for 2 years for what has to be a first time ever. Yeah, that's a strange one there, but the bullshit ain't even the thing that I really care about. No, what I care about is what he said at the end there in relation to his time on the Health Select Committee. You know what, let's hear it again.
Why, looking back on it, the approach that I advocated when I was chair of the Health Select Committee was really to follow what they were doing in Korea and Taiwan, where they avoided national lockdowns by having a much more effective test and trace system.
Oh, you said about following Southeast Asia, did you? Because I can pull bullshit on that right now, with proof that test and trace wasn't what you pushed during that committee meeting.
I very much agree with the central point in Gabriel's paper that we should be aiming for zero infection and elimination of the disease, because that is basically the approach taken in countries which have a SARS strategy as opposed to a flu strategy. And those are the countries that have overwhelmingly been the most successful in tackling coronavirus. My sister lives in Beijing, and she flew back to Beijing in the middle of lockdown. And just to give you an idea of the contrast, she was escorted from the airport in Beijing to her home by Ministry of Health officials, and then put into her home for 2 weeks quarantine. The door was sealed, and she had a police car sitting outside her house periodically. And I'm not saying we go that far in this country, but I just think it's an indication.
Oh yes, did you see the glee on his face when he talks about his sister being locked up in China by health officials despite not actually being sick? That there is a far cry from what he just claimed he wanted, if you ask me, and shows, like I said, that this scumbag's trying to rewrite history. Well, I ain't gonna let him do it. He was a China lockdown pushing scumbag that should never ever be forgotten, much like all the bloody rest of them.